please welcome to the stage Rachel Martin and Brian Reed.
Hi, Rachel. How are you?
We're excited to be here, but we were up late last night.
Yes, we are winging it. We were drunkenly drafted into doing this. We're meeting for the first time this morning.
We are. We know of one another. We are fans of one another's work, but this is a great opportunity to meet you.
And I think like what I was thinking about this morning when I was like, okay, I'm going to meet Rachel for the first time and be on stage with her. When we launched Question Everything about a year and a half ago, with the mission of re-examining journalism, and I had done this episode where I talked to a critic of mine. You
it was a good episode.
DM'd me. I don't think we'd ever interacted before.
We had not.
On Twitter with a voice note, basically saying like, "Wow, that really resonated with me. I've been going through my own journalistic evolution, and I think you're going to be a therapist for journalists." I believe is something to that effect is what you said. What were you talking about? Let's sit down for a candid conversation with each other.
Yeah, let's sit down for a candid conversation. Well, full transparency, Brian was like, I have the voice memo. Can I just play it from the stage? I'm like, hell no. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I was like real animated in that moment because I had my own kind of crisis of confidence and so many levels of frustration with the limits of journalism, and in particular, I felt like I wasn't connecting with certain audiences that I was talking to people who were already sort of on board with what we were talking about. And
was there a moment that where that hit you, or you felt really frustrated?
All the
about?
moments, Brian.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been several turning points in my news career, and I don't like covering victims. And I remember sharing with you, I think that I've done my fair share of mass shootings and horrible stories and children getting slaughtered. This is taking a grim turn early in the morning.
Oh, man.
But there's a feature of journalism that requires you to go out and talk to people on their very worst day. And then you are praised if you have been able to connect with this person and that they have given you some of their grief. And I really hated that part of the job. And even though I know it's intrinsic to it.
You talked about covering UVA, the shooting at UVA, is that right?
Oh yeah, I was at UVA, and I was on the air when Sandy Hook happened, and then I was asked to go to Uvalde. Mm-hmm. And I said no, and that was the first time in my career that I had said no to something like that. And I praise all the people who went, and I'm so glad, but as I've talked about before, there's a time and a place, and my time was done doing that kind of coverage. So I've had many different turning points in the course of my career, and I also get frustrated with which I was referring to before, the audience silos that we kind of exist in this ecosystem. Everybody knows it's incredibly fractured, and it can be really frustrating to know that you're only reaching this group of people.
Yeah, it feels pointless. It can feel pointless.
It can feel very pointless. It is not pointless. Everybody needs truth, information, and facts, but sometimes it can be really frustrating.
Yeah. And so that's what led you to envision Wildcard, basically?
Yeah, it was a completely selfish endeavor, to be honest. I needed to do something else. I mean, I was hosting Morning Edition during COVID and Trump's first term, and it was just unrelenting. And after 6 years of that, it was the midterms, 2022, I think, and we were in kind of rolling coverage, and it was very incremental. It's the other thing that sort of starts to drive me crazy is like incremental news coverage when nothing's really happened. It's also a red flag that you need to get out of daily news. And I was like, I can't do this anymore, I'm out. And at the same time, my dad had died a few months earlier. So I was like in my own personal stuff and grief, and to NPR's credit, they let me kind of channel all of that and create this show, which has nothing to do with the news.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You liking it? Yeah. I always have a question, like, does the news have to be this way? Like, you use the word require, first of all. Like, there's an aspect of journalism that requires you to talk to people on their worst day. I wonder if that's true, if that has to be an aspect of it. And then, yeah, hearing you describe the grind of the daily news. Like, I always wonder about NPR, like, and this is like a critique I've had of it, having worked in and out of the public radio system. Like, why is NPR chasing, the press briefing, congressional reporting? Like, could they imagine a way of using the resources to just beef up investigative reporting, original storytelling? Like what value is added by like chasing the same story that all the other news outlets are chasing?
Brian, you're baiting me into this.
Like, just as a listener at this point,
all my NPR colleagues out here, because off the record, it's damn competitive, and I think that if you haven't heard, NPR, we have funding issues constantly. It wasn't just rescission. It's like always there, always with public media. And it takes a lot of confidence as a news organization to say, we're not going to go here. We're not going to go where everyone else is. We're going to stay here to where our discrete value add is.
Yeah.
And I think NPR has struggled with that, to be perfectly honest. And as a result, other people come to eat your lunch on the other side. I'm looking at you, New York Times. All of a sudden, New York Times is like invented long-form narrative storytelling, and we're like, hi, we were first.
Yeah, like I know people who I know to be great storytellers, great investigative reporters who inside the building of NPR have felt like the path to be ambitious is to go cover Congress, And that is just a shame to me.
Yeah. I mean, I have wonderful, wonderful colleagues who do a very good job of covering those beats, and it is super, super important. But I think there is space to reevaluate, organizations that pay for people to sit in those tiny little booths. Everyone knows what these little booths look like in the buildings to cover a building. I mean, we can't even do it in the Pentagon anymore. I'm sorry, the Department of War. Our little booth has been erased. And, we can get, everyone else is covering that stuff. So what's the thing that you can do that's different and special? And I think that goes beyond just thinking about the larger critiques of news organizations. It goes for podcasting too, or any kind of storytelling. You have to think about what you're really good at, and where you can differentiate. And I think that too many mainstream news organizations that aren't like the New York Times, but are trying to compete with the New York Times and CNN, are duplicating efforts when they should just double down on what their core competency is. And for NPR, that's like deeply reported, sound-rich, often narrative storytelling.
Or yesterday, they broke an amazing story about a bunch of Epstein files going missing.
Our investigations team is top-notch. Literally, those people work so hard, and they're doing God's work. As are you, Brian Reed. That was a great segue to get the spotlight off me. I'm going to pivot because I do feel very strongly about this, because I sent that voice memo to you when I was like, oh my God, yes, journalism is broken, and I need someone to interrogate why and question all these assumptions that we bake into things about why things have to be X, Y, Z. And I think what you did was brave, Brian. I do. I think it was really brave to open yourself up that way. If anyone's listened to his podcast, I mean, he starts by being really honest about the successes and things he wished he had done different with S-Town, and to use that as the foundation for this show is just amazing to me. Were you reticent at all about opening yourself up to open up this show?
Yes, but it was kind of a circuitous path. So, I mean, you're referring to a conversation I had that we ultimately aired as the first episode of Question Everything with an Australian career journalist who had criticized my podcast S-Town when it came out as being morally indefensible. Her name is Gay Alcorn. And that's the conversation we ultimately aired, was a conversation between her and I. I had also gotten sued in this weird lawsuit over S-Town, and that was actually the conversation I really wanted to have. And I actually tracked down, or I didn't track him down, but I convinced the guy who sued me to talk to me, and I went to visit him in Alabama at his house.
Who does that? That is so awesome. That is so baller.
And he's very nice. We talked for 5 hours. I was certain that would be the episode that we launched with. I'm like, we had the guy who sued me. He's been a lawyer for 25 years. He's like, I've never spoken to somebody who I've sued before in those 25 years. And, I busted my ass to put together a whole conversation. I played it for my editors, and they were like, this just is not working. This is something you needed to do for yourself, clearly. But it's so legal and inside of right of publicity laws and Alabama probate statutes and all this stuff that I had all these questions from years of just this guy suing me and he had no connection to John B. McLemore whose estate he was running. I was like, what? I just needed to talk to this guy, and none of it worked as an actual episode. And they were like, actually, we think you should talk to Gay Alcorn. And so Robin Semyon, the co-founder of my company and the executive producer of Question Everything, she reached out to her. And yeah, that, I think, was a scarier conversation to have. It was more unpredictable in a way. I had kind of written her criticism off because I didn't get it. And so I thought it had to be kind of maybe if not in bad faith, just kind of clickbaity. Yeah. It wasn't criticism that was the story was boring or poorly reported or I didn't get it. It was this is morally wrong to have been made. And it was hard to kind of take that on. I just didn't feel that way,
And her argument, to put more context to it, was that you had gotten to know this man over many, many years, and that somehow putting his story out there, very intimate details about his life, and then he passed away, that somehow that was not right.
Morally indefensible. Yeah. And so it was definitely, you've had I don't know, I probably have a short list of 10 interviews. I don't even know if I can call this an interview, because it was really I say it in the story, it was unclear who was interviewing who, because she was asking me a bunch of questions, very sharp journalist. She came prepared, she'd re-listened, and then I had questions for her. But it's in the top 10, just conversations or interviews I've had in my career of just memorable, It was late at night, she's in Australia.
No, it was amazing.
I was sweating, it was
because she clearly respects you too. I mean,
and I respect her as well, and we don't agree ultimately. We found some common ground where she offered a way that could have made her understand what we were doing and appeased her concern. That makes total sense to me. But the ultimate, it's pretty deep. Ultimately, it comes down to how you feel about death and legacy. That's really what we're talking about, is talking about people who are gone, what it means to be remembered, and people just have different feelings about it.
So how did that lay the groundwork for the rest of the show? What is the overarching?
So I wanted to do that because I wanted the show to be a place where other journalists and other people felt comfortable coming and being self-reflective, self-critical, thoughtful, and I said I can't ask people to do that if I don't try to at least lay the groundwork myself. And so I've wanted the show to be that. That was in September. We launched in September of, what year is it now? Of 2024. And this is an idea for a show that's been bubbling for me for a long time. And my concept of it was that it would be very self-critical of journalism. I had a lot of kind of feelings you're talking about, there's just a lot broken with journalism, and I still do. But then the election happened, and suddenly there were all these just really, serious attacks on journalism, the truth, the free press, the First Amendment, and it felt hard to not cover those stories, and so the show has definitely focused a lot on those, and I think it's been something I've still been trying to figure out with the team is how do we strike that balance of being self-critical,
you don't want it to be
self-reflective,
subsumed.
But there's really bad actors, and there's very urgent things happening to our profession, and so we're trying to thread that needle, and then we've also just been investigating further and further the role of tech platforms in how we all feel about the information we're getting, and actually digging into that has made me more generous towards our profession.
How?
There's just much bigger forces at play that are setting the parameters of the information ecosystem that we're putting our journalism into. And I don't know, this is kind of parallel, but it's made me think of it. There's these social media big lawsuits happening right now. There's one in LA. There are these landmark lawsuits where people who were formerly teens are suing the companies for addiction and other harms. And a lot of internal information and studies have come out through discovery and about kind of what, for instance, Meta knew about how harmful its products are to kids. And there's this one study that came out that shows something to the effect of no amount of parental intervention in a kid's social media use can stop it, like the effect on their mental health. Like something to that effect, like really, it's very hard for parents to even stop it. It made me think of journalists, like what intervention could we do into the ecosystem to make it more reliable? You know, if like, even like a parent kind of really monitoring their kids' phone use can't help their mental health.
Right.
So anyway, it made me feel more generous towards us, and like we got to look harder at the way our information is circulating and being manipulated.
How do we do that as an industry?
As an industry, I think it's changing now. I think there's been a sea change, but like I think we were pretty enamored of, or kind of like not looking hard enough at big tech in a specific way. I think we saw social media as like, or many of us, I don't want to say all of us, but like we saw ourselves as aligned, as kind of defending free speech and the First Amendment. And like whatever kind of bad behavior or harms happened on social media, I think we gave too much deference to the effects, or the argument that the companies make, which is these are like necessary byproducts to have a free and open public forum, and we were kind of sympathetic as journalists to that argument.
Right.
It's like our greatest weakness is love of the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And I think it skewed our thinking. It skewed my thinking, certainly, and I've now been doing reporting and talking to people, journalists and others, who've made me rethink that.
So we wanted to see if you guys have any questions. Like, we can just keep doing this, but I thought maybe you guys might have questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our questions about funding. Funding.
You want to go first?
Sure, funding. How do we fund our thing? I blessedly do not have to worry about this because other people in NPR are worrying about it on my behalf. But we're also trying to NPR hasn't really been in the business of being profitable before. And we're paying more attention to that. It's not enough to just create things just because we believe it's a public good. I mean, it is our ethos, it is our mission. But to the side of the core competence of news, so something like my show, we need it to make money. We need it to be a thing people like so much that advertisers come, and we need it to be profitable. And so, like everyone else, we're trying to get there. We're not there quite yet because it's harder than ever to get there. But, you know, we're on the YouTubes now, and everyone is. Like, Wyatt Cenac last night at the Ambies kept talking about, oh my God, I'm like seeing people's faces for the first time, and usually I just hear them. I'm like, really? I feel like everyone is in front of a TV. Everyone's doing video now too. So we are muddling through for now, but I think NPR is really trying. It's a huge shift for NPR to start to think more in a commercial way. About some of its products. Brian, how are you funded?
Question Everything is produced by a company I founded with Robin Simeon, another longtime TAL, This American Life producer. And we produce Question Everything. It's a partnership with KCRW, which is the public radio station in Los Angeles. They're wonderful. We do editorial production. They fund the show, give us like various supports around marketing and promotion, and then we jointly like are figuring out the big business side.
Do you think partnerships are where it's at?
Yeah, and they're great partners. And you know, Robin and I met with so many people, probably people in this room, looking, for where we wanted to place this project and some others, and we ended up back in public radio.
Woo, woo.
And yeah, KCRW just is a very forward-thinking station, going through the same struggles, as a lot of public media, but really, I think, carving a lane. And their board had this forward-thinking vision to just invest in their digital future, and so our show, they wanted to have kind of nationally kind of reaching podcasts. So it's our show and Sam Sanders' show are kind of part of that strategy. And they just are wonderful partners. And, we're trying to do exactly what you're saying, like figure out the different revenue models that can make it sustainable. It is not yet, but we're getting better.
Also, if anyone claims that they know how to do it, they're lying.
Yeah.
They're lying because no one knows. It's just like a crapshoot. You just throw stuff on all the platforms.
I wasn't at the business thing yesterday here, but somebody told me they were there and it was all Svengali to them. And I was like, that's because nobody's making any money, so they can't actually talk concretely about anything.
A couple of people are making money, but they're not here.
Yeah. Can I ask you a craft thing?
Oh, sure. Craft it up.
Do you, I have two questions, or an observation and a question. Like, I consume a lot of your show as clips on social media. Do you find that knowing that that's how people are going to consume it, or some people, changes like what you're going for in the interviews? Or are you doing it like you always would have? And that just works. You just find the clip that works.
I have not, Again, we have like this amazing visuals team. I think I would freak out. If I had to think about that, I would just like lose it. Like, I don't want to think like that. I don't want to think, how am I going to ask this so that it fits really nicely into an Insta clip? So, no. I mean, I just get to go, which is also so nice. It's such a change for me from doing, at Morning Edition, the longest an interview we would go, I mean, I could talk a half an hour, but it gets edited down to like 7 minutes. It was like, long. That's long.
Yeah, that's a long spot.
And now I have a lot more freedom. And so, no, I think that would drive me insane. But also I know that for a lot of people, that's how they consume our show. So it's really, I mean, that's the art and deftness of editors. Editors rule. Editors are the best.
Yeah, of course.
Editors make us better. They find all the best stuff. They save us from ourselves. I forgot to explicitly say this last night, but like, the only reason I've ever had any success in journalism at all is because of amazing editors. And so those are the people who make real choices, you know, about how they're going to distill your story.
Tell you can't run the 5-hour interview you put yourself through,
With
going to Alabama to interview the guy who
who sued you.
Literally sitting on the shelf, hasn't been used.
They gently say to you, Brian, maybe you can expense that as a therapy thing, but like that's not going to go on the air. So how about
one thing I that you're seeing the visual, representation of your show has just reminded me of. I don't know if this is a question, it's more of an observation. Is that so much of good audio interviewing is facial expressions.
Oh my God.
And I feel like that is like it's a reminder to watch you do your interviews as an expert audio interviewer on social media with video.
Yeah.
Like
I've changed my mind about this, by the way.
How so?
Well, I used to be of the Terry Gross school of interviewing, where you don't want to share physical space with the person.
Yeah.
Because you will be distracted by their bodies and how they're behaving, and you just want to listen. And that's what audio is. It's like this very intimate listening experience. And that is amazing, and it is very, very magical. But I'm into the video, guys, and I think it has something to do with our particular format. I think it works for a one-on-one interview show really well. Because it's more inputs for the audience. Like, to be able to see, this was like an exceptional episode, so it's not like a normal thing that happened. But Melinda French Gates, when I talked to her, to be able to see her face responding to those questions was like 80% of the ballgame. To be able to not just a pause, because in audio we love a pause, right? Ooh, we love it. Sit in the pause. But it's equally powerful to sit in the pause with the face at the same time. It's like double power. And so, I don't know, I think there's room for both. There's room for both. But I used to exclusively say, no, you don't want to be in the same, I don't want to be distracted by someone something. And now I'm totally into someone something, because it tells something about them, right? Like, this person's got this little nervous tick going on right now. They don't like this question.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking, like, when you are in the same space, like, for years before video was a thing in our field, I think the dirty secret was like interviews are made better by facial expressions. Like I know I do very exaggerated ones. Like if someone's doing well, like giving good tape, it's like,
Right, yeah.
you know, like, and I get that from you. When someone's giving you good tape, you know, it's nice to be reminded that that is just like such an important and underappreciated
I've had
of interviewing.
Another editor note is like, sometimes I need to dial it back just a little bit. Like, there was a reason radio really worked for me, because no
Yeah.
one had to see like my wild gesticulations.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah,
And
in
now
audio,
they're
you
just
can be
out
like,
there, and everyone's like, God, she's crazy.
keep going, yeah. All right, any other questions out there?
Rachel, I watched your Oprah interview and I watched your Melissa French Gates interview, and I'm curious. First of all, I think the way you interviewed Oprah in person was amazing, and it was amazing because you gave her, you just were right at her level in the way that you let her speak, the way you left space. I mean, it was really, I was really, really impressed with you. And it was actually the first time I watched your show, and I was like, who? Wow, this woman, she's got it going on, so congratulations. But when you did Melissa remotely and when you did Oprah in person, what's the difference for you there?
Oh, gosh. Well, it was a big difference because, and so since the Oprah interview came out, then all kinds of people on my Instagram were like, why didn't you ask Oprah about the Epstein drop and Deepak Chopra? I'm like, well, because it hadn't come out yet. So the Melinda French Gates episode, we knew a couple, you know, I had just booked her for a particular day, and it just so happened to fall 2 days after this latest dump of Epstein files. So I was just the first person in front of her with a microphone. And I still work for a news organization. I needed to ask the question. And my show is also about a whole person, your whole interior life. So this is a central part of her interior life. Not being in the same space with her to ask that difficult question was helpful. I'm not gonna lie. It would have been, I still would have done it, but my body language probably would not have been relaxed. So that, it was easier to ask that difficult question from remove. Like people don't know, but we do most of them remote. I live in DC, most people are not in DC. And so it's like a Zoom call, but like through a teleprompter. It's kind of like an Errol Morris, like black box situation. And it's really intimate, actually, but there is like a barrier. So, and yeah, and then Oprah's Oprah. Oprah's got like, she's got like a lot of presence.
Did you go to her or did she go to you?
We met in the middle. We did it in New York. So I came up from DC and she was in town anyway. So we were on neutral territory. But to share space with her is a thing, you know, and for me,
You're interviewing like the most expert interviewer there is.
It
like,
was
what was
wild
that like?
for me because you try as an interviewer and someone who comes out of news to not be like a fan of someone because it's going to influence the kinds of questions that you ask.
held your own.
It was real hard
excellent.
for me because
You were excellent.
she's the person who I looked up to when I was growing up and the inventor of modern interviewing where you share about your own life as a way to open someone up and engender trust. So it was a big deal for me. I tried to be cool. A couple points I had to like push back, and that was like a little bit awkward, but she was saying that Jesus only loves rich people, and that's not really true. But it was thrilling for me to get to have that conversation. And she was very, very generous and lovely.
Yeah, sure.
Just go for it.
What part does vulnerability and being able to share your own vulnerability while you're interviewing your guest play in what you, because it sounds like both of you have tapped into that for your shows. But
That's a good
yeah.
question. Yeah. You want to start, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can play a very important part. Interviewing really is about being present and like figuring out what is needed, you know, to make this go well. And sometimes that can be vulnerability. I think a lot of times what it always has to be, ideally, is genuine and authentic. And so there might be in that moment where genuinely and authentically sharing something about your own experience, you just feel moved to do it, or you think it would be helpful, not in like a tactical way necessarily, but like this just feels right, it feels relevant, it's on my mind, you know? There's other times where it's just genuine curiosity, asking a genuine question that you have, which I guess is a form of vulnerability. So that's more of how I think about it, is just like really being in touch with, like the minute you start asking questions that you think you're supposed to ask, which can happen to journalists, I think a lot of us do that, I find that pretty killer for an interview. So even if there are questions that I feel obliged to ask out of like my duty as a journalist, I really try to think about what is it in that question or a way that I can approach this thing that I need to talk to them about that I genuinely feel moved and curious to know the answer to, or that I really want to tell them something I found and get the reaction to it, even if it's difficult. Like, what's the interaction I genuinely want to have versus like I have to ask them about the Epstein files or something, you know?
So vulnerability plays a big part in our show by design. It's just totally different than my experience in news as a big J journalist. As a news person is not my job. It's the opposite of my job to like emote during interviews and, oh, well, let me tell you about my loss. Like that's not what I was there to do. So the way to do those interviews in a news context is to allow a lot of silence, I think, and just be a safe place for someone to share. And you can do a lot of that with your body language and just listening and being quiet and not talking. Yeah. And it's amazing what will happen if you just sit in silence. It took me a long time to learn that because I naturally want to fill all the space. And when you stop doing that, people will share. Now, the show that I do now is very much built on the idea that we get to know each other more if we share more. I mean, that's just like an obvious thing. I want you to reveal something real about yourself. I'm going to do it too. And then we're going to do it together. And we're going to build this thing. And by the end of an hour, my God, we've like really shared some stuff. And maybe someone listening out there was moved by that or heard their own experience reflected in that. I think the danger is you don't want it to be the you show, right? Like, let me tell you all about it, where the guest is like the prop, really. And some podcasts are like that, where it's just like, I've invited you on, but let me tell you my life story.
Yeah.
And then you can laugh at my jokes and like chime in. I think you have to be careful of a balance, and that any shared vulnerability, I think it helps inform a question, right? You're not sharing just for the sake of sharing. It's like embedded in a question that you would put to someone. It's like, hey, I've been thinking about this. Here's why I've been thinking about it. How have you made sense of that? If that answers your question. Anyone else? Oh, yeah. There's two people. Actually, there's three people. I'm pointing at the man with the glasses
Go
first.
down the line there, yeah.
Hi. I've worked on shows that have a very specific format before, and excuse me, sometimes you don't deal with the guest directly until they show up on mic or on camera, and you're only dealing with like their manager or publicist. And sometimes the format of the show, the specificity of it, doesn't make it. They show up kind of not knowing what the show is.
Oh my God, tell me about it.
Yeah. So I was wondering if either of you have had guests show up kind of unprepared for what the actual show
many
is,
times.
and how have you dealt with it?
God bless you, publicists. But like
Yeah.
you had one job, and it was to explain to the guest that this is how the thing's going to go down. And also, part of that is like an internal vetting mechanism. Like this is the show. And so if your client, the guest, if they're down to play in this space and share, great. If they're not, no harm, no foul. Just, it's not a right match. But there have been many times when someone will come in, they either don't know the format, they didn't know it was also on video. There's just like all these things. I'm like, okay, what are we going to do here? And then it becomes really hard because you need them to stick their butt in the chair. They can't walk out on you. Like you've gone through the effort of getting them
Has
there.
anybody, though, been like, I'm not doing this?
I will tell you that Zadie Smith really wanted to walk away when she found out it was on video.
Bless her.
And she worked her way through it. But yeah, I don't know what the lesson here is, other than like you have to say it 3 different times and then also be prepared for them still not to know, and then to just like coax them into it and lull them into a sense of okayness.
I don't know why I'm thinking of this right now, but I'm not going to remember her name, but there's this Swedish interviewer from years ago who's kind of like the Barbara Walters of Sweden. And she would do serious sit-down interviews with world leaders, you know, like Nelson Mandela, Colin Powell. And at the end, she would ask them to stand up and just jump with her. Wish I could remember her name. And Margaret Thatcher refused. And it's like this great moment where she's just like, okay, now we do the thing at the end of my show that everybody knows me for, where we get up and just hop. And Margaret Thatcher's like, I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? I've just thought of that. I don't know why.
Hopping at the end.
Yeah.
Not at the beginning is like an
Yeah.
icebreaker. I have so
This
many
was like
questions.
decades ago. Yeah, I'll dig it up and send it to you.
Questions about
Yeah.
that. But I'm
Yeah.
going to give you a little sneak peek of an episode. Wallace Shawn. Do you guys know who Wallace Shawn is?
Yeah.
We love Wallace Shawn in New York, right? Wallace Shawn, inconceivable. He's wonderful. He's a playwright primarily and actor. This is a secret, okay? Don't tell anyone this. He was not down to do the format. And we worked through it. He like called me in advance. He very much was not down. It was exactly the same thing. I was like, have your publicist not told you? And so you can be the judge of the episode. He said to me, it's not going to be good. Are you going to be fired? I'm like, I'm not going to be fired, Mr. Wallace Shawn. You're so kind for thinking of that. He's
Be
just
quite
like,
a story if you were.
I'm just
over
not
that.
going to share. I'm just not going to share. And God bless him, he didn't really. And then at the end, at the end of our show, we end the show the same way every time, with the trip in our memory time machine. And you pick a moment and you linger in the moment. And he did not want to do it.
That's your hop.
And yeah,
Yeah.
that's my hop.
Yeah.
But when someone doesn't do the hop, and I was at least glad that he would engage on why he didn't want to do it. And his answer is actually really beautiful, that in the public sharing of the memory, that it is diminished in some way. And then when he revisits the memory, now he will think about it as the memory that I shared with Rachel and her audience. And it's a little bit lesser, it's less personal. I was like, okay, man, like I will take your
That's
pass
awesome.
on my hop at the end of the show because you gave me a beautiful rationale for that. But yeah, it happens a lot.
That's awesome.
Anyone else?
My question for you is, we're not a fan of this administration. I would like to find, I don't know if you find this problematic, but reaching out to other, we're in our own echo chambers, how we can reach other people, especially when we think it's hopefully every interview is important, but how do you reach people from maybe another place who may not have your mindset?
I do a celebrity interview show about feelings.
Yeah.
So this is on you.
That helps. I don't know. I think, it's a real, it's a real struggle. This is part of the tech thing I'm talking about, where I have some, sympathy for us because we're fighting against very big forces. But I have found that the more human work has crossed over, that I've had experiences where I'm like, oh wow, you're a listener to this, you heard this story. So I think just really I think being allergic to cliche, anytime something seems to be presenting as a stereotype or a cliche, really running away from that in the way that you're reporting on it, but also being honest about yourself. But I don't know, this is total bullshit. I don't know how to do it. I just
The one thing I would
I don't know, do you have any
say
ideas?
is treat everybody with respect and don't exoticize people's views or approach them as other. And I think your instinct is right to make it about people and not policies or politics. But the more you can ground your storytelling in the experience of an individual person, that it makes it easier for anyone to connect with it. And then you got to work. You got to work at it. You got to put yourself in. You got to go to the Elks Club. You got to go where people are, and you got to start to know them. You can't cold. I'm going to cold call a MAGA supporter. It doesn't work. You need to get in the physical spaces where people are who are outside of your particular echo chamber, and you got to earn their trust, and then you share their story. I hope that's helpful.
One thing I just thought of, which is not this at all, but I just did this interview with a psychology researcher at Cornell, and he has been running experiments and studies where he's found, and his team has found that 3 questions, like a 3-question interaction between someone who believes a conspiracy theory and a chatbot, an AI chatbot, significantly reduces their belief in the conspiracy theory. And basically they've solved for like all the different variables in it, and what they've shown with their research is that the facts actually matter to people, which is like really reassuring, and I was very surprised by it.
It's just finding the facts and convincing someone that this is the true thing.
But with conspiracy theories, like AI chatbots have like such an incredible ability to grasp all the facts you need to deal with a conspiracy theory. So like you can read the back and forth where someone like believes that 9/11 was an inside job, and you have to know something about like the melting point of steel and immigration visa policy. Like there's all these factual issues that get brought up, and it can like deal with it in 3 questions, and it significantly reduces, on average, their belief in the conspiracy and their likeliness to believe other conspiracies. So I don't know. It's also very chilling to watch a machine change people's minds, even if it's for the better. But anyway, that's something that I thought of that I'm still I just did this interview, so.
One thing that I really was interested in your kind of conversation about like the larger kind of critiques of news, and I think one thing that comes to my mind is just kind of maybe naming the elephant in the room, that we are living in a political environment where attacks on press are much more common. And I just wonder if that creates maybe sensitivities as you're talking with your teams in terms of what you feel comfortable saying on air, or just kind of like how, if that changes anything kind of on the back end for you, just like, does it make you feel more uncomfortable, like offering a more nuanced critique of news? Like how do those conversations maybe play out behind the scenes?
I'll just say that yes, it makes me uncomfortable, because as defenders of the First Amendment and freedom of press, when that is vilified by an administration, then all of a sudden you find yourself personally at odds with an administration. And that is new territory. And as I'm putting my news hat on now, but that's not our job to be on a side one way or the other. It's not NPR's position anyway. So that is uncomfortable. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just not great. And it hasn't happened to me, but friends of mine have been personally maligned by this president, and so that it's not at all how we have operated. And so it's difficult, but I think, just speaking for my own shop, I think they do a really good job of threading that needle and just leaning into the actual facts of what happened. And it's not about us. It's not about us. We're all big kids and we can take it, but it is an uncomfortable position.
Yeah, I mean, it's become a major focus of our show, Question Everything. And again, like the thing that's been tricky is like trying to figure out, like you are in this defensive posture, standing up for something that is both your livelihood, your values, but something that I think is important for all of us, that is like, it's not just under attack, like it's working. Like that's what we're seeing in our reporting. You know, we're running a story, I was just listening to the last edit this morning, that comes out tomorrow. It's the second part of a series about this reporter Mario Guevara, who was a El Salvadoran immigrant in Atlanta for more than 20 years, very on the ground, reporting in Spanish, live streaming law enforcement operations, including ICE operations, all the way back to the Obama administration. And a Trump supporter, can't vote, but like a pro-Trump guy, immigration hawk, who was arrested at a protest, a No Kings protest in the summer, and never let out. ICE held him for 111 days, 69 of those in solitary, and then deported him. And the arguments they used to hold him was that his reporting on law enforcement was dangerous, blatantly unconstitutional. The First Amendment is failing. There's now no one in Atlanta doing this coverage. He had as many followers as the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, mostly Latino and Spanish speaking, where he's showing them what ICE is doing to their communities. It's not happening anymore. It's a stated goal of the administration that they want to stop this from happening. They want people's faces covered. They don't want you filming what they're doing. They're shooting people who are filming what they're doing. And now there's no one filming what they're doing in Atlanta who was doing this for 20 years. And it's having we're talking to other reporters who are following Mario's case and not doing that reporting in their communities. It's working. It's incredibly urgent. It's a huge story. I mean, that's just one example, like we've reported on college campuses where, student newspapers are taking down columns and quotes from years ago because people who are international students are worried about what they said about Palestine, for instance. 2 years ago, after Rumeysa Ozturk was locked up, it's working. It's incredibly urgent, and we just are trying to cover it with that urgency.
Okay, I think we have.
Are we the whole day? What's happening up here?
Now, Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.